Peter Lorre had been a known force within the world of character acting throughout the 1930s and 40s, most fondly remembered for his roles as Hans Beckert in Fritz Lang's M, Ugarte in Casablanca,
Do something, you must help
Joel
me!
Cairo in The Maltese Falcon, or more underappreciated films like The Mask of Demetrius, Black Angel, and Mad Love, or the Mr. Moto series.
Strange people, these Americans.
But with the arrival of the 1950s, he turned his eye to the opposite side of the camera, perhaps in hopes of finding something less oppressive than the roles he had hitherto been given. The last one then fell within and later came to symbolize a period of disillusionment in Lorre's career. He returned to Germany tired of, as he called it, face-making. Desperate to rediscover not just himself, but the land he left behind. The latter shunned attempts at decontextualization during his time, the classic Trümmer film by sheer collective ignorance having been eliminated in favor of nationalistically affirmative Heimatfilme that told Germans that it was okay to be so, while the former was in aching need of reinvigoration. In the film, Lorre, the actor, plays Neumeister, a doctor tending to war victims in a refugee camp near the border of Poland.
Behalten Sie mal die Nerven, Doktor.
To his surprise, he's found by former colleague and Gestapo officer Hirsch, who begs him for a hideout and new identification, prompting a view into the past.
Ich meine Novak.
Neumeister was once scientist Karl Rothe, a respectable working man turned murderer of his fiancée after an espionage incident. Rather than pay for his crime, however, the state, at the behest of Hirsch, covered the murder up,
Befund, Selbstmord durch Strangulation mit einem Lackgürtel.
and Rothe, filled with guilt yet unable to atone for it, continued killing. Rather than singling out individuals, Lorre, the director, points out how in a system predicated on control and surveillance, where each matter, be it of life or death, is a matter of the state, one cannot remain apolitical. Private life is inextricable from public life. Neutral spaces are absent. What does a singular murder mean in a country that's producing them en masse? Throughout, the film passes from present to past, not via strict monologue, as would be usual, but through conversation between Rothe and
Keine
Hirsch,
Ahnung, was sie damals getan haben.
the two as representatives of the individual and the state, the latter sometimes awake and coarsely active, sometimes slumbering. Further, past and present are linked through technique. Before the murder of his fiancée, Rothe lights a cigarette, and right after, the film transitions back into the present where he extinguishes the match. The insinuation is clear: the cigarette, so usually a trademark object of Lorre, takes on meaning of eternality of his murderous tendencies and of an inability to break from himself. So if Rothe's name change cannot dissolve his past, one may likewise ask how the defeat of Nazi Germany so suddenly changed the ideologically indoctrinated minds of 8 million NSDAP members. The last one owes an obvious debt to Fritz Lang's M. Both evidently they were serial killers roaming the dusky streets of Germany, and both make use of similar techniques, but beyond, the last one is rather Lorre's commentary on M than a strict copy. If M, as Harun Farocki observed, prefigured fascism and portended Nazism, once murder and concomitant hysteria serve as impetus for controlling measurements, Last Run reconstructs life under Nazism, where murder now has been absorbed into the regular way of functioning. After all, as unfair as the kangaroo court was, Hans Beckert paid for his crimes, where Dr. Rothe did not. Additionally, the last one, if one focuses on its title, whose German variant Der Verlorene carries greater semantic significance here, is deeply reflexive. Seeing M as the film that both made and ruined Lorre's career, by branding him with the image of the psycho, the very stench he cannot rid himself of, even when taking on such noble professions as that of scientist or doctor. Forever remains the Triebtäter, the sexual murderer, forever remains lost. But whereas his character eventually redeems himself in some way, Lorre remains resigned to the inexorability of the life that had been created for him. Rather than misunderstanding Lorre, audiences understood him very well, too well perhaps, dismissing his film for coming too close to the truth which would see them having to accept responsibility imposed on them by a Middle European who never witnessed the atrocities he described firsthand. Instead, audiences prefer to curl up next to the warm escapism of Grün ist die Heide and Sissy, ignorant monoliths against whom Lorre couldn't hold a candle to. Lorre, his autobiographer Stephen Youngkin wrote, like Lotte, stood on the outside looking in, a stranger in what had become a strange land.
Exhausted.
Lorre left Hollywood a broken
Completely
man,
exhausted.
dissatisfied and drug-ridden, but returned in arguably even worse condition. Retroactively respectable genre roles became shoddy grotesqueries like the Congo Express that turned him from villain to joke. The last one was perhaps then not a defining moment, as much as was a further nail in the coffin of a former prodigy.